Patrick Kennedy, welcome to Strasbourg.
Thank you.
Coming from the States to this wonderful city, you should have a lot of time to spend here to see what's happening here, because that's where the capital, they call it itself, the capital of Europe, is to be found. You have a lot of institutions here that's maintaining the human rights in especially Europe.
Yes.
You're here for human rights issues, and mainly this time because you are very upset about what's going on in Iran and the way Iranians are treated when they are opposing the system. Tell me a little about your engagement, could you?
Well, first, I had the honor in the United States Congress to be one of the principal proponents for the International Criminal Court, the ICC. So as you know, we had President Clinton sign the Rome Treaty, but it was never ratified by the United States Senate. I always believed that with a strong institutional framework like the International Criminal Court, we could avoid a lot of the civil wars and other crimes against humanity that we continue to see today. If, for example, the leaders of these countries knew that they were going to be held accountable. So in other words, all of the higher echelons within the Syrian military and Assad himself, if he knew that no matter what, he would never be able to leave Damascus without being arrested, I think that would help change. If any of his military commanders knew that if they were part of this use of chemical weapons, that they could never leave their country without fear of being prosecuted. Yes. I think that would change things. And if Iran, which is one of the biggest perpetrators of human rights abuses around the world, ever could be held accountable, I believe we could see a different day. Now, I'm here because of the tragedies that have occurred in Iraq, which tragically has become a puppet state to Iran. So Nouri al-Maliki, the prime minister of Iraq, is doing the bidding of the mullahs in Tehran. And we know this because we have seen them communicate. And the resistance movement, the MEK, who have been trying to seek a free Iran, which is really what all of us should want, because this is a regime that has really terrorized the world. Not only have they terrorized their own people, there have been hundreds of thousands of their own people that have been tortured and murdered, executed in Iran, but they also are torturing and murdering people around the world. They fund Hezbollah, Hamas. They were responsible of manufacturing all these improvised explosive devices during the war, which killed American servicemen and women. I mean, this is an organization that's now, this state of Iran that's being led by these mullahs is now trying to create a nuclear weapon. And if they ever are able to succeed in that goal, they will be even more emboldened to terrorize the world.
For interrupting you there, Mr. Kennedy, but at the moment we have seen the reaction, I could say almost of the world, by listening to the new president of Iran, Mr. Rouhani. Yeah. And he, even while he was speaking, I learned today, is hiding the fact that there are public executions, that there are a lot of arrestments in Iran. We all believe at the moment that he is the new man, the reformer.
Yes, we are mistaken if we think Rouhani is speaking without having his orders come from the mullahs. Now, we know that he was a hand-picked candidate. So we also know that he was the nuclear negotiator years ago, and he boasted about how he lied to the international community, the European community specifically, about the nuclear program while they expanded the nuclear program. This is the same person. So what should we think about him? Now we think he smiles. Well, wonderful. Assad smiles. But that doesn't mean he isn't a a war criminal, and Rouhani is executing his own people while he's smiling and addressing the United Nations. He's also ordering the murder of these 52 hostages, these folks who are really refugees.
Let me come to that. But at the moment, you have a president in your country belonging to your own party, the Democratic Party, who is picking up the phone, talking to Mr. Rouhani as were they more or less friends, because they want a serious start for negotiating about a nuclear program. Isn't that relevant?
No, I think that we all want an end to the nuclear program. But to think that a phone call, a handshake, is going to change the way that Iran operates is ignoring the history of Iran. So there are many people, including myself, who are troubled that we would reach out to Iran when Iran hasn't shown any action on a good faith. Now, instead of words, it would be better if Rouhani is suspended executions, if Rouhani started to dismantle his nuclear apparatus. It would be better if he gave his people freedom and didn't execute them in record numbers or torture them. It would be a greater sign that we could work together if he freed half of his population who are women, who are disallowed any rights in the country. These are the ways that he could build confidence. But Rouhani is uttering words, and words are meaningless if not backed up by actions.
But you are related to a family which have given the world hope. We all need that flame, so to speak, of hope. Isn't what's going on at the moment what could give us hope, that everything is tried to be calmed down in a way? Syria, Iran, even in Iraq, Lebanon, Israel, wherever. Isn't that needed, that we calm down and that we try to negotiate, that the dialogue is the one to succeed? So
my father, Senator Edward Kennedy, supported Nelson Mandela when Nelson Mandela was seen as a terrorist. You know, we need to be on the right side of history, and we cannot accommodate the tyrannical regimes that oppress human rights, whether it was apartheid in South Africa at the time or whether today it's the mullahs in Tehran. We need to be on the side of people like Madam Rajavi, who are trying to find a new Iran. And I believe there will be a free Iran in the next months, years, because we've seen the possibility for change. So what I would prefer that my president did was align himself with freedom, with our principles, democracy. These are the principles of
Peace Prize
of Madam Rajavi, and these are the principles that should guide us. I would say a majority of people in Iran, more than a majority, they all want the same thing all of us want. They want their families to grow up in freedom and not have to fear people coming in and executing them. They'd like to grow up and have an economy where they can go to a job and make a living. They're living in a country now that is oppressing them. And I believe we should put our political support behind the opposition to Rouhani. And that opposition is the MEK.
This wonderful lady came to this city across the river here at the European Parliament and asked the European Union for support a couple of years ago. I would like to know if anything happened, because what I could find out was there happened nothing in concrete. Words, yes, but nothing concrete.
So thankfully in our country we have a judicial system, and our judicial system overturned the blacklisting of the MEK. And that was progress. In addition to that, hundreds of members of the United States Congress have written letters in support of this democracy effort being led by Madam Rajavi and the MEK. So we are seeing the change. but we're still seeing the oppression. We just seen 7 hostages taken by Iraq, and they're denying that they hold
And
these.
now tell please what happened in Ashab.
So on September 1st, the Iraqi government, through their special forces, broke into a UN-protected camp. This is the 4th Geneva Convention protects these refugees, these asylum seekers, and they openly killed and massacred them, 52 of them.
And it's the 3rd time they broke in.
Third time that they've done this. Now, the point is that they will keep doing it unless we tell the world that we're going to hold them accountable.
But you know from Srebrenica in Serbia that safe areas saved by the UN doesn't matter.
No, that is the tragedy of this, is that the UN, the power of the UN is becoming undermined. It really has no value to people to say you're an asylum seeker, you're a protected person under the 4th Geneva Convention, and then have nothing mean nothing.
What do you suggest? What shall happen?
So I suggest people of goodwill, like yourself. There are individuals who can contact their parliamentarians here in Europe and ask them to say, don't send my tax dollars to support the regime in Iraq. So if Nouri al-Maliki, who's the prime minister of Iraq, understands that Europeans, members of the United States, are saying, we're not going to give you any more aid, I guarantee you that will get his attention. So what we need are the people watching this program to call their members of parliament, to call their elected officials, and tell them to suspend foreign aid to Iraq until Iraq investigates these crimes and frees the hostages that it is holding. That's the only way for us to try to make a difference here, is by holding this government accountable. And of course, the United States has put the Nouri al-Maliki government into place. We should have the most influence. Unfortunately, my country, the United States, is also silent on the hostages that are being held by the Iraq government. And it's because they want to try to accommodate the mullahs in Tehran. And I think that is so wrong on every level, on a legal level, on our national security level, and certainly on a moral level. That is reprehensible. And I think that we need to force our elected leaders to change the way they are governing. That's the best we can do as citizens.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.